European Parliament Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee Chair. He'll make a statement and then he'll take your questions. Mr. Gualtieri, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. I participated to yesterday sessions of the informal ECOFIN, as usual, as the chair of Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee, and I would like to thank the Bulgarian presidency for their invitation and for the good management of this important meeting. This informal ECOFIN has been also, of course, has given the opportunity to me to have a number of bilateral contact meetings, both in the framework of ECOFIN and in the framework of the Eurofin. This morning we just had the usual PS ECOFIN ministers breakfast, for the first time also for Olaf Scholz, the new German finance minister. So it was a very good discussion. And of course, the center of all these meetings is the agenda, ambitious agenda we have ahead of us on a number of legislative files that are part of a broader project, banking union, capital market union, completion of the economic and monetary union. On behalf of the Parliament, I expressed during the discussion of the Capital Market Union the strong commitment of the European Parliament toward this project and our commitment to conclude positively the number of legislative files that the Commission has put on the table. In particular, I said that we are very close to adopt a text on the CCP, central counterparties, supervision and third country arrangements, which is a key file, not only because of Brexit, but also because it is the first step of enhanced EU supervision of capital markets. I urged also the Council to move ahead on this file. I said that also on other very important files, I would not make the whole list of them in this area of capital market union, like the pan-European pension product, the review of investment firm, and also on the most difficult one, the ESA review. Parliament is working intensively, so I am confident that we will be able to start trilogue with the Council and to bring those files to conclusion. In the framework of CMU also, I urge the Council to be effective and ambitious on CCCTB, which is a fundamental file for taxation, but also for capital market union, to address the equity debt bias and to provide concrete answer to the problem of base erosion and profit shifting, in particular, as the Parliament did, addressing the problem of digital presence. We also discussed about broadly the issue of convergence, as you know, was one of the topics of the agenda. I said that also the paper that was presented by SEPS shows that the main tool of convergence this year has been the cohesion policy in combination with the single market. It means that if we want to be serious about convergence, we have to be ambitious about the budget in the next multi-annual financial framework, because to reduce cohesion policy would be not a wise decision and would not favor the convergence we all say we need. Of course, convergence is a broader concept, as far as the euro area is concerned, affects a number of dimensions on which we need to complete our construction, because the first years of the monetary union showed that common currency was a powerful driver of convergence, but with the crisis, the shortcoming in completion of monetary union became an amplifier of divergence. So that means that the whole agenda that has been put on the table by the Commission is essential. First, enhance a crisis management function that we strongly think should be incorporated into the EU legal order, so that's why we urge Member States to support the Commission proposal of Article 352 and to integrate the ESM, that could be called monetary fund, even I don't think it's the best name, but an enhanced ESM or stability fund within the EU non-legal order. Second, to provide a macroeconomic stabilization function to the EMU, both in the form of investment protection and in the form of unemployment benefit scheme, but this should be on top of the, not with redeployment from the money from the cohesion policy, and that's why the issue of own resources to improve the quality of the budget financed by own resources and not by transfer between member states is essential. We need facility to support and encourage structural reform for enhanced economic policy convergence. The Parliament has proposed the convergence code. And finally, we need the completion of the banking union. And the completion of the banking union requires a balance between risk sharing and risk reduction. Saying balance between risk sharing and risk reduction means that we need do the risk reduction with this risk reduction package. And I said that the Parliament is also ready to work in a super fast track on the additional risk reduction measure which has been proposed by the Commission. You know, this prudential calendar provisioning backstop for new NPL, which is relevant measures that I think is necessary. We are ready to adopt, maybe also to improve, because it is an important element, and we think that it's better that we do this through legislation. Then, of course, the ECB can, on its specific banks, on top of that, require additional calendar provisioning. So we are ready to move in this direction, but we want also to see and to hold the banking package. If you have a question, we can go more in detail on the MREL and the other elements. But on the other hand, we need also to move concretely on the risk sharing, which means the backstop and the EDIS. So we think that this parallelism needs to be preserved. And of course, risk reduction measures has to be done in a way which produces the reduction on risk and does not trigger instability. That's why we think that we should focus on the proposal of the Commission on NPL and not introduce additional element to this area. So this is these are some of the issues that we raised, where of course for the Parliament is also very important the democratic accountability dimension, an enhanced role of the Parliament in the semester process. Integration of ESM into the treaty would also allow us to have a more constitutionally ordered and orderly and democratic construction. I think we should also move to a double heading, as also the Commission has proposed, between Eurogroup President and Economic and Monetary Affairs Commissioner. So in order to create gradually this figure of Finance Minister, subject of democratic accountability. So there is a whole coherence that we should preserve. One can be gradual in building up, but when it's to be very clear in the aim and in the message that we are making, not wasting, not missing this window of opportunity to make decisive step forward in our economic governance framework in order to provide more growth, more cohesion, more also resilience to future possible shocks.
Thank you, Chair. I'll open the floor for questions. Please present yourself with your name and the media you work for. The lady in the third row. May I ask you just to walk to the mic, please?
Ruth Berschens, Handelsblatt Germany. Mr. Gualtieri, you mentioned the new German finance minister, Mr. Scholz. What was your first impression of him? And could you tell us a bit about your expectations towards him? Thank you.
is a very positive impression of a personality with strong European commitment. I understand Mr. Scholz strongly believes in the European project. Of course, there are issues where it's normal that there are different sensitiveness from different member states, and these are reflected in the various positions. So this is normal, and we are going. It has been a first change of view, so it's a bit too early for me to see concretely in terms of the very specific files. But I think that I see from Mr. Scholz an attempt to combine realism, pragmatism, but also European vision. Then we will, let's say, measure this concretely on the various files that are open on the table, and we are ready to engage positively, of course, as always, with him and with Germany, hoping that this, let's say, ambitious European chapter of the coalition Vertrag will be then implemented, and would give a contribution to this challenge we have to move ahead in a number of important files, and more than that, to give the sense of the vision of a Europe that becomes stronger, more democratic, and more able to deliver to the citizens.
Thank you. Other questions?
Alexander Weber from Bloomberg. What's your impression on the talks about completing the banking union? I think the mood recently has become a bit more pessimistic, perhaps. What do you think can be agreed by June, and what can the Parliament do to help this? Because I've also heard that some were concerned the Parliament may not agree on the banking package before the summer, so the trilogues would obviously be delayed. Perhaps you can say something about that too. Thanks.
We are working intensively on the banking package, and I do think we will be able to reach a common position to vote on both part of it before the summer. Of course, we hope also, I do hope, that both in the Parliament and in the Council, same level of commitment and effort will be given to the other file of the banking package, which is the EDIS, because I think the various components should move in parallel. Then, of course, in concrete, this banking package has to provide solid, reliable solutions to be balanced. I'm sure that the Parliament text will be balanced. I'm not commenting of provisional compromises that here the Council is trying to reach, because this is an informal ECOFIN, there's not been formal negotiation. Second, because I'm another institution, so I'm not here to negotiate with the Council. We first have to vote our text, and then we will start the negotiation. It's true that I have the impression that it is a very challenging package, and it's not easy to find compromises and to keep the sense of the completion of the project. So there are different views, and this, of course, is an element of concern for me. So that's why I insist that we should not miss this opportunity, and we should be able to have a comprehensive and balanced package that gives the sense of the completion of the banking union.
Ali?
Then, if you want to go more in detail, of course, of our point of view or what the Parliament is doing, I'm ready, of course. But
Irish Times.
Paddy Smith, Irish Times. Did you give the ministers a sense of the Parliament's view of the Commission's proposals on digital taxation, specifically its interim measures, and did you get a sense of the mood of the Council?
they are discussing this morning and taxation, as you know, and the Parliament, according to historic arrangements, is not attending the part on taxation, which I don't think is optimal from our point of view, as of course we don't think is optimal the fact that the commitment of Mr. Juncker to activate the passerelle clause and to shift to codecision in this area has not been implemented. So we're looking forward for that because we think that Parliament could give a strong contribution introducing codecision and qualified majority voting in this area. In our text, we introduce within the CCTB the digital presence. So we think that is the best way. So the best way to do this should be to tax the profits and to be able to recognize the digital presence and to have an allocation mechanism that prevents the phenomenon that we all know is going on of base erosion and profit shifting, which is particularly intense and negative so in the area of digital industry. We know that the Commission has proposed also an interim solution which goes on the revenue side. We are going to work also on this, so we will start work on also this file, and constructively, because it's a tool useful tool that can be used in an interim. But having said that, the view of the Parliament that the comprehensive CCCTB with the integration of the digital presence would be the best way to address this problem. In any case, Europe has to move on this area, to be serious, also vis-à-vis citizens, which see a high burden of taxation on labor, on SMEs, and on the other hand, they see big companies not paying their fair share of taxes. So this is, it affects, I would say, the very substance, our, let's say, social contract. And so it's not just an issue of recovering revenue, which is also very important. It's not just an issue of identifying possible own resources for our common budget, which is also a very important element. But more on that, there is an issue of fairness, and which also is strictly related with the credibility of our institution, of our European Union. So this is a priority file, and we cannot but, with the mandate that our Parliament has given by adopting the CCTB, and what I'm sure we'll do also with the new proposal, encourage the Council to move forward.
Thank you. Other questions? Jean?
Hi, Jean Comte from l'AGFI. Two questions. First question is the European Monetary Fund. At the Council, obviously member states are not super happy to work on this file in the normal process. So they are pushing it to an informal working group, and they don't seem super happy about the Parliament being involved in that. If you don't mind to give a comment on that. Secondly, a short question on EDIS, the Deposit Guarantee Scheme. We have the impression that in the Parliament, the file is totally blocked. Is it true? And your comment on that? Thanks.
On the first question, as I said, not just me, but the Parliament strongly support the proposal of making use of Article 352 of the treaty to incorporate the new ESM, EMF into the EU legal order. This procedure would require the consent of the Parliament, but it is a consent, it's not a codecision. So I would not be I don't see what is so problematic of having. We are going to give consent to Brexit. By the way, this was also an issue during also the discussion yesterday during CMU. There has been some debate also about this topic, Brexit. I forgot to mention it, but apart of that, the Parliament can give a consent, which is not a minor parliamentary step in a Brexit, and it's too dangerous that the Parliament have a consent on a text that, by the way, we most likely would broadly support, as it has been proposed by the Commission. So it's, for me, it's difficult to understand the reason of this reluctance. If we are talking about the procedure of this legal basis, which in any case require unanimity, the only thing it does that then the Parliament has to give consent. But I don't think this is would be a source of problems for having the adoption. So again, I don't understand if this is a problem. Then there is the other issue, fears that Parliament might wish to use this in order to have a full direct control on the ESM, threaten its independence. I many times said that this is not the case. We are fully aware that the ESM is financed with member state money. So, as is the case, for instance, of the EIB, where we don't elect Mr. Hoyer, we are aware that where is not EU money, but member state money, we should respect this. So we are not asking, actually, to appoint the head, neither the head of the SSM nor the managing director. So we make it very clear. We think that ESM incorporated in EU law would be better for a number of reasons, including the fact that it would be simple to provide a backstop for various functions, including for fiscal capacity to the euro area, because we are aware of the discussion on the figures which are around for the MFF. So we are not, Parliament is ambitious, 1.3, other less. So at the end, if we want to develop this macroeconomic stabilization function within the union budget, we have to know that with the resources of the budget, it's unlikely that we would have the amount. So we would have a budget line, some space, but in case, so to have a backstop that can borrow, with a borrowing capacity, with an amount of resources that are not used currently are there, that could support this function, would be extremely important. But then it has to be into the EU legal order. So that's so there is a number of elements of institutional coherence, democratic legitimacy, accountability, which does not mean direct election, and efficiency in terms of that clearly explain why we have this position, and we are concerned about the reluctance that we see among member states of following this avenue.
Any other questions?
Oh, the second question, Eddie.
Sorry.
Once try to forget the bad question, the difficult question, but it's the right question. No, I'm joking. No, I have to recognize that on this file, differently than another, I cannot simply, let's say, blame the Council, but also recognize that we have also within the Parliament difference. I can only say that I urge the negotiating team to move ahead. We presented the amendments a lot of time ago. There is work going on building up compromises. I think the Council, the Parliament should make its own decisions without looking and waiting for the Council. So it's more useful for the quality of our co-decision democratic process that there are different views, then we build compromises. We are very good. So I really urge the negotiating team of EDIS to move ahead, to move forward, to work on the file to identify possible compromises so that we can also give a more credible stimulus to the Council.
Thank you. The Bulgarian National TV.
Lina Biserova, Bulgarian National Television. I would like to ask you to make a comment about the last meeting yesterday between Angela Merkel and Donald Trump. I know that they demonstrate really, I would say, warm attitude in front of the journalists at least, but still remain on a very different political positions. What did you read between the lines, and what would be the impact of this visit?
To be totally honest, these days, hours in Sofia are so intense that I did not have the opportunity to follow in the detail. I read, of course, the main news. So my impression is that, of course, it's important that a European leader like Macron and now Merkel has tried to establish a dialogue, cooperation with the United States, which is our main, most important allies, of course, and friend. But clearly, the new approach of this presidency to the world, to the global affair, the so-called America First approach, requires the European Union to be able to be more capable to have a common effective foreign policy, to be a global active actor, because this is required to address all the global challenges we have. So I think that the new approach of this presidency is not a problem if we like, we don't like. Simply requires the European Union to be more present, more political, and then also to move ahead. So this is an additional reason why we should be ambitious and deliver solution and results, because the world situation requires a strong, active European Union.
Thanks. Any other questions? Bulgarian National Radio.
Could you please share your opinion of possible imposing of U.S. tariffs?
Can you repeat?
Tariff, you mean?
Yeah.
No, we consider, of course, negatively this. We don't think that tariffs are useful. So, as you know, we have a double-track approach. On the one hand, a positive dialogue to avoid a kind of escalation in the trade area. On the other hand, of course, Europe, as you know, prepares measures that might be necessary if this wise approach is not followed by our friends. So it's not my area of responsibilities. Our committee has enough responsibilities, so there is a committee for trade. So you should, of course, discuss with the responsible chair. But this is, of course, the general position that we have in the European Parliament.
I don't see any other questions. So I think we can wrap up our news conference. Thank you very much, Chairman Gualtieri.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for your presence, your interest, your questions. See you.
Okay, let's see. Depends on the question.